Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, please be welcomed in the 17th Jonas Pranas Aleksa International Scientific Conference. Mėlieji, leiskite prabilti ir lietuviškai. Sveikiname nuoširdžiai jūs visus susirinkusius tiek nuotoliniu būdu, tiek ir čia auditorijoje į 17-ąją Jono Prano Aleksos tarptautinę mokslinę konferenciją. Kadangi dauguma mūsų dalyvių vis dėlto yra užsienio kolegos, tai leiskite šitą konferencijos sekciją vesti anglų kalba. Labai tikiuosi, kad mes visi puikiai ją suprasime ir net ir gerbdami savo lietuvių kalbą leisime savo kalbėti bendra kalba, kurią mes mokame visi. So let us begin with the English language, because the session will be in it, just to have an opportunity to talk to each other, to understand each other, and to enjoy beautiful scientific discussions with our colleagues from foreign countries. It's our pleasure and honor to host you all in Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy in Lithuania, because it's a perfect time, despite of the rain which is outside, you can feel the real Lithuania. Lithuania means lietus, it's coming from the word lietus, which means rain. So welcome experiencing real Lithuania. And we are very happy that today we have a lot of scholars from different countries to share their insights, thoughts about open, transparent, and resilient governance. So once more, thank you for being here, and we would like to start our conference with some welcome speeches. First of all, I would like to introduce Renata Bilbokaitė, professor and the director of our Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University, and I would like to ask Renata to give a welcome speech.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy and satisfied because I see physically people, scientists, researchers, public managers who are here at Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy. I want to say that I'm really proud of my whole team because we are very strong in all Lithuanian country in public administration area, in our study field and in our research field, and especially Vita. I want to clap our hands. I really hope that today you will have great discussions, and especially it will make an impact to our society, to our regional leaders, because it's very important to make evidence-based management in regional development, in our local authorities, activities, and so on. So I wish you great discussions, better relations with our local authorities, and I hope to see you all in our next conference. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Renata, for this wonderful, inspiring, and motivating us for cooperation and discussions speech. Now we would like to invite, as Renata mentioned, we are very focused on regional development. So let me invite the Director of Regional Development Institute of Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University, Associated Professor, Dr. Lina Garšvienė. Please, Lina.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, participants, guests, and I would say friends. I'm an economist, and I understand how important is the functioning of all economical sectors to have this sustainable economic growth and growth of entire country. So I hope this topic of this conference, this open, transparent, and resilient governance is really important. So I bring the paper with me because I don't want to miss. We are really happy. We have a lot of flags here. So that's why I'm with the paper, and I will read just all the countries that are presenting their presentations in this event. So it's United Kingdom, United States of America, Republic of South Africa, Bulgaria, Poland, Latvia, Romania, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Turkey, Germany, Spain, Slovenia, and of course, Lithuania. So you see how wide if you really map we have here today. I'm really pleased with your ambitious presentations. Have a good time at Šiauliai Academy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina. As Director Renata already mentioned, we are expecting for very close connection with local authorities. And it's my great pleasure and honor to present you the next welcome speaker, Justinas Švėgžda, the Vice Mayor of Šiauliai City. So, Justinas, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Dear guests, dear academics, dear PhD students, the university, the academy staff. First of all, I want to be honest with you. I haven't been a student in a higher education institution for the last 2 years. But at the same time, I'm a huge nerd and a geek when it comes to public administration, the role of the state. And I really appreciate the invitations from Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy every time I receive them. So there was not a 1% possibility that I wouldn't show up today, because there are so many exciting topics that you're going to discuss today. And at the same time, I think that I also can contribute to the discussions that will follow the presentations, because currently I'm proud to say that I serve as the youngest deputy mayor in Lithuania. I just turned 28, but at the same time, I served for the mayor's office and in the municipality since I was 19. So that's probably 1/3 of my life, almost half of my life. So I can probably sensibly call myself an expert in the field. And I think that there are some things that I can also contribute with. So transparency, openness, and resilience are the things that we have tested ourselves in context to during the last years, for sure. And I had a chance and an opportunity to be responsible for the emergency reliefs for the COVID-19 pandemic and the ways we dealt with it, because international guests might not be familiar with the fact that the first case of COVID-19, it took place here in the place. So we were the first ones that had to deal with it firsthand. I was 22 at that time, so I was a real youngster in the field. But now I feel that these experiences have enriched me big time. And I do believe that it has made me a better professional in the field. So I just wanted to thank the Academy for organizing events like this, because as much as I can say about the progress that the city of Šiauliai has made in the 3 fields that we will primarily discuss today, I do believe that we need to be more different perspectives. I do know that there are different organizations represented, NATO, the Special Investigations Bureau, the international academics. So this will make this into an event that makes me, or has made me, fall in love with the academy in the first place. Because there are no right and wrong answers, there are no right and wrong questions. And that is why it is so special to have events like this in the city of Šiauliai, because this is the only place in the northern Lithuania that we organize events like this, because we don't have any other academias at the level that we have here. So trust me, you are doing a great job. Your mere arrival is a huge signal for the entire region, for the regional politics, and we really appreciate that. So I want to pass the best wishes also from the mayor of the city, Artūras Visockas, who was also a student of this institution himself. So he has a great, it played a great part in his life, for sure, in his future decisions, and of course becoming the mayor subsequently. So thank you so much. I wish you really fruitful discussions. I also hope that students will show high levels of engagement, because this is what the educational process entails, and this is most definitely a thing that you should do as the students, because in future you will. I do believe that I sound a bit like an old teacher, or I don't know, or so I just wanted to say that, trust me, this is the greatest opportunity, the greatest chance to get as much as possible from the international academics, because it doesn't happen every day that we have them over here. So take whatever is possible right now. And once again, thank you so much for events like this. It is a great honor to have you here. That's what I'm saying, not as Justinas Švėgžda or not as I'm just saying it as a part of the community, as a representative of the entire city. Because just a quick one fact, it's not. I mean, I do know that I'm not a speaker, but it has been 4 minutes prior already. So I just wanted to say that, just so you know how important you guys are in this institution is we had a survey. Municipal level survey, and it was indicated by the majority of the citizens that the most important question in the city is the future of the former Šiauliai University, current Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy. So this is the identity of the city, and we are responsible for strengthening it with every single day, with every single event. So thank you so much, and have a great day, and I hope that you stay for the weekend and enjoy the city after the conference ends. Šiauliai šviečia. This is the slogan we use. This means Šiauliai shines. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you so much, guys.
We would like to thank you, Justinas, for our Vice Mayor, as well as Director of the Academy and Director of the Institute. I would like to really to thanks to all of us for being here, because this conference was organized and the result not only by Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University, but we work together very close to our partners. So it's my pleasure and honor to see colleagues from the Institute of Lithuanian Scientific Society and Professor Jasaitis, who was the founder of this conference 17 years ago. It's great pleasure that this person inspired us to talk about very important issues. Unfortunately, today, Professor is ill and he is in clinics, but we wish him health and to recover as fast as possible. We would like to thank to the Ministry of the Interior of the Republic of Lithuania and colleagues from the ministry coming here from the capital and joining us. We hope that you will experience the community sense we have here, and you will become a part of it. At the same time, the biggest gratitude to the Research Council of Lithuania, and we have the representatives of this community here. We have Science and Innovation Advisors Network members here, so thank you, colleagues, for coming the whole way from different cities, as I know today, but it's our great pleasure and honor to have you. As already Justinas mentioned, we have Special Investigation Service representatives today here. So thank you for your long-lasting collaboration and sustainable collaboration. I guess more than 20 years already together with you. We are very happy to see representatives of non-governmental organizations here. Thank you for being with us and supporting Šiauliai Academy scientific events and contribution with your presence here. And we have even alumni, our previous students who finished studies here, now representing their own leaded public sector organizations. So thank you for coming here from different cities. It seems like a friendly network. We have professors coming from different universities. We have colleagues from different countries here, and we have colleagues from different institutions. And of course, the members of our academic society, I mean, Šiauliai Academy colleagues who were contributing to this great event. So applause to everyone who contributed and who are here. I'm very happy to say, it's not according to the program, but I'm happy to see Professor Young Chili from South Korea joining us. He is not one of speakers, but it's our great pleasure to see him online. He's a friend of me and some of other presenters from UK. So it's, you see, we are uniting the world today. And we have colleagues from South Africa as well online. So it's great pleasure and honor to have you all. Let me remind that this session is recorded. So what we will say, it will be recorded and transmitted online, as well as spread it later after the conference, because there are a lot of interested people who cannot attend because the time zone differences or some other occupations. But we have the RENET Researchers Excellence Network and YouTube channel, and we have followers from different countries, and they review our networking events as well. So just to let you know that we are all here, and if you will have any questions, do not hesitate to ask, to raise the hand. We will give you microphone because people online and in the record should hear the question, not only the answer. So let us begin with the presentations, and thank you for your patience waiting for that. It is our honor and pleasure to welcome the first speakers, Dr. Christopher Baker-Beall and Nora Leach from United Kingdom. I hope that Christopher shortly will represent both of your team members, and I will help you a little bit with opening your presentation, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I just want to start by thanking you for the invitation to present the research that we've been conducting here at Vilnius University today. So thank you ever so much for the invitation, and thank you to Vita. So the title of my presentation is Open, Transparent and Resilient Governance, Counterterrorism in the UK. And just as an addition, not in the conference programme, learning from the 2017 Manchester Arena attack. So my name is Dr. Chris Baker-Beall. I'm Senior Lecturer in Crisis and Disaster Management at Bournemouth University. I work at Bournemouth University's Disaster Management Centre, and my research focuses on issues to do with counterterrorism. So just to give you a very brief overview of what I plan to talk about today. So I want to look at UK counterterrorism from an emergency planning perspective. So much of the academic research in this area has looked at issues to do with radicalisation, right? How do we prevent people from being radicalised into committing acts of terrorism? It's also touched on policing and intelligence. How do we stop late-stage terror plots? But less research has looked at the emergency planning dimension of this area. And the presentation itself is based on an article that myself and Nora had published recently, along with my colleagues from the Disaster Management Centre, Professor Lee Miles, and a colleague from the US Federal Emergency Management Agency, Emma Reed. It's in Studies in Conflict and Terrorism, and it looks specifically at the issues relating to UK counterterrorism from an emergency planning perspective. So in order to set the scene for my discussion of resilience in terms of UK counterterrorism, I just need to very briefly touch on the history of emergency planning in the UK. And also the history and the evolution of the UK's counterterrorism strategy. I also want to just mention resilience, because this is not just a key buzzword, but a focus of policy, specifically in the UK, but all across Europe as well. We constantly hear discussions in the policy community about the need to ensure that our societies are more resilient. Specifically, I want to touch on two of the work streams within the UK's counterterrorism strategy contest, Protect and Prepare, and look specifically at the important emergency planning dimensions of this strategy. And then I'm going to finish off by touching on the Manchester Arena attack. Some of you may be aware of this. It was a terrorist attack that occurred in 2017 at a concert in the UK. I want to look at some of the issues that emerged on the night that feed into and provide lessons for how we enhance resilience moving forward. And in keeping with the theme of the conference, also just to touch on as well the role of the state in enhancing resilience. So very briefly then, history of emergency management in the UK, just to provide you some historical context. In the UK, New Labour comes to power very many years ago now, 1997. And at the start of their period of government, two major international events occur. The first is September the 11th, the terrorist attack in New York. Almost 3,000 people lose their lives, the attack on the Twin Towers. And also in 2003, in Asia and the Middle East, you get the circulation of the first SARS-CoV-1 virus, the first COVID virus. What this does is it creates an imperative within British government to focus on issues related to the identification of risk reduction, and risk management. It creates an imperative for emergency planning. Shortly after these major events, we get the first counterterrorism strategy, which is called Contest, shorthand for Counterterrorism Strategy. There have since been 4 iterations of this strategy. And there's just a little screen grab of the first strategy, released as a confidential document into the Cabinet Office in 2002. The first publicly available document becomes available in 2006. This has formed the basis for how the UK deals with terrorism over the last 20 years. You also have the first pandemic influenza response plan, which was only updated once in 2011. It wasn't updated again in the period after that, and we all know very well from the UK's response to COVID, it wasn't, should we say, it wasn't optimal. As well as this, as well as developing policy, the UK also creates a legal framework for emergency planning. It implements, puts onto the statute book something called the Civil Contingencies Act in 2004, and I just want to touch on that and why it's important. So what does the CCA do? Essentially, it establishes a framework for multi-agency response to either critical or major incidents in the UK. So it puts a statutory requirement, so a legal duty, on what are called Category 1 and Category 2 responders. So Category 1 responder, the list is there on the left. You've got your police, your fire, rescue, your ambulance. Essentially, it's all of your blue light services. They have a legal requirement to be prepared for all kinds of major incident. As well as that, you have, and to prepare and to plan for it. As well as that, you have Category 2 responders. They have, it's important for them in the sense that whilst they don't have a legal requirement to necessarily plan for major incidents, they have to share information with the Category 1 responders. So I'll give you an example. Say you have a major chemical plant, right? They have to share schematics with, say, the police, the fire service, in case there's some kind of incident at the chemical plant, right? It allows for the various stakeholders to plan for major incidents. So this is our framework. The most important part, though, is that it requires the Category 1 responders to work together on multi-agency planning. So they have to work together. They have to plan, they have to train, they have to exercise together so that they're prepared when major incidents occur. So we get this move from, in the past, what were more ad hoc formal structures of coordination to more official regulated forms of coordination. We also create something called local resilience forums. These are set along in the UK police constituency boundaries. Again, they pull all of the Category 1 responders together to think through what are the risks in their local area and to make sure that they have strategies and plans in place to deal with those risks. And I would say that from 2004 to 2011, the UK's approach to emergency planning is fit for purpose. We then have a period, a new government comes to power between 2011 and 2021, where sort of national resilience, emergency planning drops off the radar a little bit. So Bruce Mann, he worked in the Cabinet Office under Tony Blair for the past 20 years. He wrote a report recently, and he said that actually one of the major issues in terms of resilience in the UK is that our arrangements for managing major incidents have suffered a lack of development. So between 2011 and 2021, they weren't so much a focus. But in other areas, they've also been allowed to decay. In response to this, the UK has released a new national resilience framework. And in the framework, resilience is defined as the ability to prepare for, respond, and mitigate against risks that could impact the country's safety, security, and critical systems. And it's underpinned by three key strategic priorities. Those are that there is a shared understanding of civil contingency risk shared by the UK, a greater emphasis on preparation and prevention. And this is something we see in emergency planning all the time, right? It's so much cheaper and effective to invest in good prevention than to try and deal with risks once they've actualized. Yeah, it's much more difficult to develop a response in the response phase. You need to have your plans and strategies in place before then. Also, resilience is a whole of society endeavour. Right? What this means is that there are multiple stakeholders that are involved in the emergency planning process. Okay, so that's UK emergency planning in historical context. I want to now move on to the UK's counterterrorism strategy, what it is, and why it's important in the context of the terrorist attack in Manchester. So, has anyone ever seen this before? Just pop your hands up. This is the emergency planning cycle. 1, 2, 3, a couple of people have seen this? Okay. So, the idea is that you have two major phases to a disaster and several stages. You have the pre-disaster phase, so this is all of your mitigation, putting in place strategies to lessen the impact of a particular risk or hazard. You have then preparation. Are we prepared? Do we have plans and strategies in place? You then have the post-disaster phase, right? Your crisis. You then have the response or emergency intervention, and you have recovery and reconstruction. And the idea is that we're constantly learning lessons and feeding them into our disaster cycle so that we can improve the next time a major incident occurs. Now, what's interesting about the UK counterterrorism strategy is that actually it is first and foremost a strategy designed to reduce the risk from terrorism, but we can also see it as being underpinned by emergency planning imperatives. So you have 4 work streams: prevent and pursue. These are sort of pre-disaster. They're about preventing people from being drawn into terrorism. Pursue is about late-stage terror plots and policing and intelligence, identifying those risks before they become apparent and stopping a terrorist attack. But then you move into protect and prepare, which is kind of sort of around the post-disaster response phase. So protect is about ensuring that our critical infrastructure is resilient. It's also about ensuring that we have all of the wider stakeholders involved in emergency response are counter-terrorism aware. And then prepare is very much the emergency planning aspect of all of this. Are we prepared? Are we able to respond when an incident occurs? So we have these 4 work streams, and the idea is that they work together to reduce threat from terrorism. I want to touch on protect and prepare now, which are the emergency planning aspects of the UK's contest strategy, and also the areas that have been less focused on in academic research. Now, there was a major terrorist attack at the start of the 2000s in London on July the 7th, also known shorthand 7/7. It was an attack on the commuter system. I think about somewhere between 50, 60, maybe 70 people lost their lives in July 2005. And this is Lord Justice Hallett, Lady Hallett. She wrote a report in 2011 on the terrorist attacks on that day, and she identified 5 key issues. Those issues were that there was a lack of adequate information sharing between the emergency services, failures in communication between the key responders, basic misunderstanding between the emergency services as to their respective roles and operations. So there was a lack of clarity. Difficulties resulting from the lack of a common rendezvous. So one of the most important aspects of an emergency response is joint working, is to have all of your commanders in the same place at the same time. And what this does is it leads to a recognition in the UK that we need to have interoperability between our emergency services. Those of you that work in the military probably hear that term a lot, right? The need for interoperability, so that everybody is working off the same page. And it leads to the creation of something called JESIP, which is the Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Principles. And as I will explain in a moment, these same issues actually are repeated at Manchester. So we've identified problems, yet those problems occur once more several years later. And one of the things that we do very well in emergency planning is we are very good at identifying lessons. But do we actually learn those lessons and ensure that they're implemented? I think that there remain question marks there. So this is JESIP. I won't bore you to death by running you through the whole thing, but this is essentially our interoperability principles in the UK. 5 key principles: co-location, self-explanatory; communicate, right? The idea that we need to speak in the same language; there needs to be coordination, joint understanding of risk, and shared situation awareness. So these principles are supposed to govern our response to any type of major incident. What happens at Manchester is that the response is found wanting. So I'm just going to very briefly run you through what happens at Manchester and specifically touch on the protect and prepare work streams, because there's failings in both areas that link into these work streams. So just quickly, what happened just after 10:30 on Monday, the 22nd of May, 2017, a suicide bomber, Saman Abedi, enters the Manchester arena. It was an Ariana Grande concert, the American singer. So the crowd is made up of mainly youngsters, women, children. They've gone to enjoy a night out watching their favorite singer. The young man that carried out the attack, he detonated an IED, an improvised explosive device, in the city room. So the city room is located just outside the main part of the arena. It links the arena to the train station. So it's a walkway. It's where people meet to collect their loved ones. Sadly, tragically, the bomb kills 22 people, many of them children. The youngest, a young girl called Safi Russo, she was just 7 years old. 800 people injured. Over 120 require hospitalization. So you can just see here from my little photograph, this is the Manchester Arena, this is the city room where the attack occurs. The train station, Victoria Station. Oh, sorry. Yeah, apologies. So this is the Manchester Arena here. This is the City Room in red. This is where the attack occurs, linking to the Victoria Station. So what went wrong? Protect. There were missed opportunities before the attack. So this I would categorize as a private sector stakeholder failure. So what do I mean by that? Security at Manchester Arena is all run by a private security company called Assoc. They miss an opportunity to identify the attacker. He waited in the City Room on several occasions between 9 and 10:30, and he was not spotted by patrols. Security guards were actually warned by a member of the public at 10 minutes or 12 minutes past 10 about the attacker. Someone approached a security guard and said, "There's somebody acting suspiciously. I think we need to do something about this." That information wasn't relayed effectively to higher management. The threat wasn't neutralized. It wasn't reported to a senior manager. Also, what's supposed to happen when a security company is, when an event is coming to a close, is they're supposed to run what's called an egress check. So the idea is that you walk around the arena and check that everything's safe. Now, it was done with public safety in mind. So the security guards walked around, checking that the walkways are clear. People can leave freely and safely. They weren't thinking about terrorist threats, right? So there wasn't that sort of counterterrorism awareness. That feeds into this. And of course, the valuable lesson here, I guess, is that better training is needed for other stakeholders involved in security in public spaces and major gatherings. You saw the Civil Contempt Act that I showed for you. Again, maybe there's a more of a responsibility there for those other stakeholders. I just want to play a little clip for you. I hope that's okay, Vita. It's only about a minute long, but it just captures this point that I'm making. It's from a news report about the attack and the missing of this opportunity to stop the terrorist attack itself.
Simon Abedi was wearing a backpack that was so heavy that it bent him over. Within it was a bomb packed with shrapnel.
Who convinced this young man to put a 32-kilogram bomb in his backpack? There is evidence that he could have been stopped. The man in the yellow jacket is a member of security staff at the arena who was told that Salman Abedi was acting suspiciously before the explosion. The man who told him, Witness A, actually confronted Salman Abedi.
Witness A says that he asked the man, "What have you got in your rucksack?" but got no response. Witness A then said, "It doesn't look very good, you know, what you see with bombs and such. You, with a rucksack like this, in a place like this, what are you doing?" The man responded, "I'm waiting for somebody, mate. Have you got the time?"
The security guard flagged Abedi to a colleague.
The second security guard then tried to alert the control room, but all of his radio channels were busy, and he watched as Salman Abedi carried his backpack closer towards the arena itself. "I just froze," the security guard said, "and didn't get anything out on the radio. I knew at that point it was too late."
And there are some of the victims of the Manchester Arena attack. So you can see there, very basic processes had been in place for reporting that security threat. The attack might actually have been stopped. What this has made the UK government do is think again about requirements on particularly private sector stakeholders. And at the moment, they're working through Parliament something called the Protect Duty, or also known as Martin's Law, named after one of the victims. And what this is going to do is place a legal requirement for owners and operators of public spaces to be prepared for terrorist attacks. The idea is that everyone needs to be a little bit more counter-terrorism aware. Hopefully, I've just got a couple more minutes. Yeah. The other thing I want to touch on is what went wrong in terms of the emergency response. In emergency planning, we talk about the golden hour, right? That's the 1 hour after an event occurs. This is when we have the most opportunity to save lives and reduce the risk or impact for others. And the way in which it's been described by the Manchester Arena inquiry, big inquiry into the terrorist attack, is a failure of GESIP. And there were three major failures that occurred, and I would describe these as public sector response agency failures. The first is around communication. So there was a failure to declare a major incident. So you had British Transport Police and Northwest Ambulance Service. They declare a major incident, but they don't share this with the other responders. If they had shared it with the other responders, then they're much more aware of the need to send, to send all of the resources to the arena. As a result, there was also a failure to co-locate, so there was no agreed rendezvous between the police, fire, and the ambulance. The fire station manager actually rejects the rendezvous point provided by the police because he thought it wasn't safe, because there had been reports of firearms, weapons going off. So what happens is that the fire send the fire service to their own rendezvous point 3 miles away. They send them in the opposite direction to the police who are driving to the arena. So as a result, the fire service don't play any meaningful response in the for the first hour or first 2 hours of the attack. They have life-saving equipment that could have been used to help and mitigate the impact of the attack itself. And then finally, again, a failure to communicate. There was a failure around a declaration of something called Operation Plato. So what's supposed to happen, this is the UK's response, or the police's response to what's called a marauding firearms terrorist attack. What's supposed to happen is that the police are supposed to first of all, communicate to all of the other responders that Operation Plato is taking place. This sort of partly happened. They then go in and they zone the arena, and they have hot zones, so it's not safe. Warm zones, you can work in those zones, but it might not be safe. It's kind of at your own risk. And cold zones, the threat has passed. As a result of failing to zone quickly enough and to effectively communicate, ambulance services the ambulance service personnel weren't able to enter the arena for over an hour. That meant that those hundreds of victims are lying there with injuries. They're not able to get in and help support them. So again, these are all things that could have been dealt with before the attack itself. The Manchester Arena inquiry, led by Sir John Saunders, is very critical of what happened on the night. But one of the things that he touches on is austerity. He says that actually, real cuts in real terms of funding for the police, for the fire service, they've had a massive impact on the ability to provide an adequate public service in certain respects. So I guess the key lesson here is it's really important to invest in your emergency services. So I'm just going to finish now with the key lessons from Manchester. What it does is it demonstrates the importance of GESIP, the importance of having multi-agency working between the various stakeholders, with communication between these stakeholders is absolutely key. It absolutely highlights the need for further training and exercising. So lessons were identified in previous training exercises, but they were not acted upon. Many of the mistakes that were made, and the mistakes occurred at the silver level. Okay, so in the UK we have gold, silver, bronze, strategic, tactical, operational. The guys on the ground, the first responders, did a great job, but it was mistakes at that mid-level, the silver level, the tactical level, by the police, the ambulance, the fire service commanders, that led to a suboptimal or less effective response. And again, the repetition of those mistakes from London to Manchester suggests the need for further research in this area. Have I got just one more minute? Sorry. Just conclusion then. Okay, so emergency planning and preparedness activity is essential for all types of major incident. I think the lessons that I've just highlighted here are applicable in all different countries for all different types of major incident. And again, just to bring it back to the theme of the conference, I think the state plays a really important role in creating the environment and conditions for this activity to take place. And we should see emergency planning and preparedness activities as an insurance policy. And obviously, you never need insurance when you buy it, but when you don't have it, inevitably, you do need it. So it would be a call to invest in those, in emergency planning moving forward. Apologies for running over.
Thank you so much, dear Christopher. I know that your team, together with Nora and other colleagues, were really a big job to analyze this case, and it shows us some lessons to be learned about resilience for terrorism attacks. But at the same time, we will keep our questions for the questions and answers session, if you do not mind, just to move on to the next presentation, which will be given by Sean Bittick. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you here. It's my great pleasure to say that I met Sean this May, I guess, in the conference in Vilnius. which was organized by my colleague Simona, Science and Innovation Advisor in the Ministry of Defense. And I was really inspired by Sean's speech, so I'm very happy and honored that you chose even to come to Šiauliai, because Šiauliai shines, like Justina said. So we are very grateful for you to be here. So the floor is yours.
She's got me blushing. Good Lord. First of all, labas rytas. A little bit further north, sveiki. And even further north, today. My name is Sean Biddick, and I am honored to be here. I'm very grateful for the invitation, and I hope that I will be able to provide some value to this fantastic conference. Now you say, trust and leadership, a facilitator's perspective. Now what on earth does that have to do with open, transparent, and resilient governance? Hopefully, I'll be able to tie those two things together by the time this is done. My real hope is that everything that I say over the next roughly 19 minutes, I'll try to get it shorter, roughly 19 minutes is going to be, duh, everyone knows that, why are you here? That's 20 minutes of my life that I could have gotten back. But unfortunately, that doesn't always seem to be the case. So I don't have nearly as nice a slideshow, nor as polished a delivery, so bear with me here. We're going to get through this together. So while you guys look at my overview, I'm going to tell y'all about a leadership failing of mine from 2015. This would have been November-ish. I was a younger senior airman in the United States Air Force in the Security Forces career field. And I was actually at tech school to become a security forces guy because I started out in public affairs and I hated it. So I got permission to cross-train into a new job because I wanted to be one of the people defending air bases. And I had an altercation with one of my subordinates, and he was being a little difficult, and I yelled at him. Now that doesn't seem to strike anyone weird. It's the military. People yell. Yes, but where I failed was I did not realize that this young man was feeling a particular way or in a particular mood because he was 19 years old and he had just found out that he was going to be a daddy. He had a dad, a father. He had no idea what to do. He was completely confused. It was a total surprise. And if I had known him better, and if I had communicated with him with more empathy and with more understanding, then it is entirely likely that that confrontation would have gone much differently, and I could have somehow provided value to that young man's life instead of making his already difficult day worse. I think about that almost 9 years ago. I think about that at least once a week as a reminder of what not to do. So we're going to talk about trust, leadership, governance, what I think of as the permission to fail, the real golden rule, and then the idea that everything is a people business. And then we'll take questions during the Q&A session if you have any. Hopefully you won't. Hopefully this is all very obvious. Now, I argue that trust is the most valuable commodity. Now, what's this mean in governance, large and small? As an example, interpersonally, I trust that NATO will not fire me for taking leave. It happens in the U.S. quite a bit, so that's a big level of trust for me. Institutionally, I trust NATO to honor the Article 5 commitments that are clearly written into the North Atlantic Treaty, or the Washington Treaty. Now, how do you build that trust? We build what is called a pool of shared meaning. So essentially, there has been a lot of eye rolling over probably the last 5 years or so, where people of a certain generation look at a younger generation and say, you're too soft, it's all feelings, blah, blah, blah. I would argue that by building a space where people can feel emotionally secure enough to express themselves to you, be they subordinates, be they peers, be they superiors, that is a way to unlock a more open and transparent communication. So we can build trust as a team in multiple ways. And my biggest example personally would be the military. So the joke that you might hear around bantered about by military folks is that shared suffering and vulnerability builds very strong teams. Anyone who's been in the military, anybody who's witnessed a military film knows that there is plenty of shared suffering in the military. For example, I'm afraid of heights. Maybe you're afraid of dogs. Maybe you don't like cats. If that's the case, you're wrong. Maybe you don't like ferrets. Maybe you're afraid of failure. Whatever it is. But if you have a safe place where the people around you know you well enough and you trust them well enough to express what those fears are, that is a great concrete piece of evidence that shows that they trust you. If you're in a leadership position and everyone tells you all the time, oh no, everything's going great, that means they don't trust you. All right? If they trust you, they'll bring you their problems. Leadership, the most dangerous game. When I was in middle school, which I think is the top end of primary school, maybe the beginning of secondary in a lot of European models, in my English and language arts classes, which is where they taught us how to read, how to write compellingly, how to understand and pull deeper meaning from what we read, which clearly we've failed to do. But we had a book of short stories that we had to read, and one of those was the short story, The Most Dangerous Game. And basically, it is a story of a crazy rich guy who owns an island, and what he does is he either kidnaps people or invites them over under false pretenses, sets them loose in the woods, and hunts them. It's a little nuts, right? Ultimately, it works out for our main protagonist. He does not get killed, but that is quite a concept. I would argue that even more difficult than that kind of hackneyed example is leadership. Everyone in this room is a leader in one way or another. Whether you have people that report to you or whether you report to people or whether you're just a member of a flat communications team, you have the opportunity to lead in your space and place. Whoever it was that set up the coffee this morning, whoever laid out the bottles, whoever helped someone driving from 2 hours away find the actual parking space and then apologized on that person's behalf, whomever they may have been for showing up late and making this conference start a little late, they are a leader. You always have the opportunity to lead. So, honesty in leadership is key. It is perfectly okay to say, I don't know. If you have someone, if you have a leader, a person above you in the hierarchy who does not give you the space to say, I don't know, that's a bad leader, and you're going to have to figure out a way to help them through that. Now, that's easier said than done, as we all know. Now, the other piece of leadership and admitting that you don't know something, at least to me, is that gives you an opportunity to express genuine humility. I work with people all the time who assume that because of my title and because of what I do, I'm this all-knowing, really, really smart person who's got all the answers. And I tell people all the time, I have no idea. What do you think? And they freak out. They're kind of like, well, you're the guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy, but I don't know everything. But I think together, building this relationship together, we can find a way to solve this problem. That can be very, very powerful if done genuinely and not for performative purposes. Communicate early and often. So, especially at, say, NATO or the EU or any multinational level, any time where you take multiple measurably different groups of people and put them into one place and space, you have to communicate as much as you possibly can. I started out with the salutations from 3 nations in the area, not to be like, look at how smart I am. I know some words. I know 3 words in Lithuanian, y'all, and I forgot one of them. So I really just know 2 words in Lithuanian. Thank you. I didn't do that to say, look at how smart I am. I did that to say, I am a guest here and I am grateful for the opportunity to spend time with you and to get to know you. Especially as an American, we have a very well-earned reputation and stereotype for refusing to learn anything but bad English. So that is a small bit of respect that I can show anywhere I go to learn to say hello, goodbye, please, thank you, and I'm so sorry, just one more beer. That last one's a joke. So, governance. I've got it listed here as the worst necessity. When you start talking about governance to basically anyone except the deputy mayor about governance, their eyes glaze over and they get really, really bored. Or they fall asleep. We're friends. From now on, we're friends. For the most part, people in leadership positions, especially senior leadership positions, tend to expect that you have results immediately available. And when you say, well, it has to go through some kind of governance, they get unhappy. And I think that that's a communication failure at all echelons, all the way up and down the communication chain. That's just me personally. For example, I'm a huge doctrine nerd. Anybody in the military, you start talking about doctrine, they get really, really unhappy because it's boring. It takes forever. It's not as cool as this technology that we have. It's not as neat as this exercise that we're putting on. But what they fail to understand is without the doctrine in place to set up the bounds of what right looks like and what is normal, the cool tech doesn't happen. Well, it'll happen, but it won't answer your problems. The exercises will happen, but you're not going to gain anything. You're not going to grow as an organization without the bounds of that doctrine. But doctrine can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years to make. That's a really long timeline for people that want an answer right now. So you have to effectively communicate early and often. Now, the standard definition of governance, I don't recall where I pulled this from, so apologies, is the action or manner of governing a state, organization, etc. Sean's kind of off-the-cuff, slightly silly definition of governance is the method by which hardworking people can enact change at their level and beyond. So the municipal level is where real work happens. It's where government actually touches people's lives. When you go up to the regional or the national level, everyone has a stake, but the impacts take longer to get to the people on the ground. And then if you go to the multinational level or the supranational level or the intranational level, it can be decades before the results of policy decisions are felt by the people at the local level. What you do in your place has meaning and has a great deal of importance. If not to you and those around you, then people potentially decades into the future. Never forget that. It can get very, very lonely when you're making the right choice, but you have to go with it. Now, permission to fail, the golden rule. As I mentioned earlier, if you have anyone in your circle, they could be a superior, a subordinate, or a peer. If no one in your circle tells you when they failed, they don't trust you. And if no one in your circle tells you when you fail, guess what? They don't trust you because they don't believe that you will be open to and receptive to the reality that they have shared with you. Now, I argue that failure is not so much an inability to do a thing. I think that failure is an opportunity to grow. So I had a boss one time who was, at the time, I could not stand him because he was constantly in my business. Now, I thank I literally called him up a couple years ago and thanked him for helping build me into who I am today. He had a very funny expression he would use. Instead of when he had a job that needed done that he knew no one wanted to do it, he wouldn't say, "Hey, I've got a thing for you guys to do that you're probably not going to like." He would say, "I have a magnificent opportunity to excel." And when you fail in those magnificent opportunities to excel, to this leader's great credit, he did not attack you. He did not yell at you. He would say, "Okay, what went wrong? Okay, you made this choice. Why did you make that choice? Okay, that was the wrong choice, but in the future you could do something like this instead." He used those teachable moments. So failure can build closeness, it can foster trust, it can instruct, and it can guide future efforts. 4 minutes left. Hang in there. We're getting close. Now, if you are a plumber, you might say you are in the plumbing business. If you are a lawyer, you might say that you're in the lying business. That's a joke. That's a joke. Just kidding. If you're a lawyer, you are in the business of the law. If you are an administrator, you work in municipal governance. If you're a professor, if you're a teacher, if you're a mid-level functionary who's a huge nerd, everything that you do is related to people. Okay? If you're a plumber, and you can't talk to people to figure out what their problem is and help them, you're not going to be a plumber for very long because you're not going to have any business, and so on and so forth. So if we don't work effectively with our teammates, if we don't communicate early and often, if we don't establish and verify trust at all stages, and if we don't lead in our places and spaces, then we cannot have effective governance that happens at the speed of relevance. And I say speed of relevance. If the people that you are leading, broadly speaking, from the municipal level all the way up to the international level, if your teammates do not trust you, they're going to drag their feet and they're going to go out of their way to not enact whatever it is that your vision is. So as you can see from this interesting smart art choice, governance on the outside comes from leadership, which comes from people, which comes from emotional safety, but it's all centered in trust. If you don't have that trust, you cannot lead. Now, this is what I spoke about. I think we're more or less on time. This is what I spoke about, the importance of trust in leadership. Everyone can be a leader. Governance might be boring to some, present company excluded, but it is critical to lay out the boundaries of what you're trying to accomplish. The golden rule is that everyone around you needs to be able to fail, and you need to be able to help them through that. Everything is a people business because we all deal with people, no matter what we do, except for one very specific example of programmers I read about in a Cal Newport book. Everyone has to deal with people, period. We'll take questions at the Q&A session. I'm very, very grateful for the time. Y'all may email me, call me, send a carrier pigeon, send the rain, whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean. I could listen to Sean's speech for the whole day. He would be a good professor, I guess, explaining complicated things in very simple words. So thank you for your great speech today. But as it was mentioned, we have to move on to the last but not the least live presentation, as we have like 4 presentations, but one will be from our colleagues online. So it's our great pleasure to present you our colleague, Benas Aldakauskas, who is coming from the Special Investigation Service, and he's leading, like a leader, anti-corruption education division in Lithuania. And as it was mentioned, we have a long-lasting collaboration history with this institution, and we always, like a university, like a public administration, study field, and let's say researchers in the field, we always feel your huge support. So we have bilateral trust, I guess. But at the same time, we see how many things to create the society resilient for bad things such as corruption, how many things your division is doing to prevent it. It was said in the presentation of our colleague Christopher and Nora. He mentioned it's better to prevent rather than to fight consequences. So Benai, the floor is yours, and we expect some thoughts about how to prevent and to make the society resilient.
Thank you, Vita. I know how does this looks like, but it will not be a toast. It will not be. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. As we see, transparent society is strong state, and there is special investigation service. In this, among academia, distinguished guest, and then BAM, law enforcement agency. Why? So during my presentation, I will a little bit try to explain, but there will be two short moments why. So the first one, as Vita told before at her initial speech, around 20 years we are contributing together with academia, with previously Šiauliai University, now Vilnius University Šiauliai Academia. And I counted 20 years ago, I was just at the beginning of my 4th grade at school. So I'm really happy that this long collaboration could be established, and the results we can see today and the impact we did together, it's, well, we cannot move backwards on that. We need to move only forward. And the second thought, why we are here. So basically the mission, the vision of unofficial one of the Special Investigation Service, we are the main agency, the main law enforcement body in Lithuania who works to tackle corruption. So when we will be finished with our jobs, that's it, retirement. We will be happy. So the mission of the education of awareness raising, anti-corruption awareness raising, is to stop the corruption before it happens. So that's why we need to think about behavior, to think about our mindset, and to use our mindfulness to move towards more integrity in our society and backwards from corruption. So to begin with, why? Why we are moving towards awareness raising and not, I don't know, attracting more officers to our ranks to, I don't know, to listen, to do investigation and so on. So why we do that? Sustainability, because of course you can tackle one criminal, other criminal, you can destroy the scheme, but other schemes will come up if the people will think that, okay, corruption is not so bad for me, for our society, if they will not count themselves as the members of the society. Everyone here in this room especially and online, we are kind of a grand team of integrity, as we can say, because we have something in common. We want to reach for the future. We want to speak about trust, about how we need to prepare for disasters, how we as a society can tackle our challenges, and to make the safe space where we can live better. So sustainability, because when we talk about awareness raising, it comes with long-term solutions towards corruption especially. Impact, what we can do and what we are trying to do. Of course, you can go to the conference as myself today, you can make a lecture, you can make a lesson. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to make networks. Because networks and best practice exchange programs is the best way, because people talks to people, professional talks to professionals. I remember 5 years ago we began to think that maybe we don't need to go to the schools to speak to students, maybe we need to speak to teachers who speaks to students. And at first we are trying to reach out for teachers, so we found 2 or 3 of them who wants to speak about corruption. And then we began to build that platform, to build the network for them, where teachers can speak to teachers, because teachers could not listen for us. They said, you do not understand. You are not in the school. You're not the teacher. You do not understand. So we let teachers speak to the teachers. Right now we have events, I think 1 in the quarter, where 500-600 teachers connect online, shares experiences, shares how they are doing awareness and anti-corruption awareness raising in schools. So that began from those 2 or 3 teachers who wanted to share. So we can make an impact together. It's impossible for a special investigation service. We have a small team in anti-corruption education division to reach such a number of teachers in 2, 3, maybe 10 years. But what we can see, that was a snowball effect, and that is still bowling. And not future, but present. What we mean with that is when we talk about the bright future as something that, of course, it's in the future and it's always tomorrow. It's nothing better to have a to-do list to put that tomorrow. Every day is tomorrow, so you can speak that. But we need to talk about today. How today we can act. Different generations live in Lithuania. Different generations act together. As I remember, when I was a child, 4 or 5 years old, my grandma and granddad, they said, okay, so your generation will grow up and everything will be better because you are the new generation. You don't know the occupation of Soviet Union. You don't know any other bad things what happened in Lithuania. You weren't born yet. I'm kind of growing up right now, 31 years old. I'm still growing up, as you can see. But we are still thinking that next generation will be better. And my opinion is we need to stop. That's it. Not put responsibility on future generation. We need to speak and act together today, not to leave our problems for the future. How we are doing that? So we have principles why we're doing that, and we are reaching to how. So first of all, to create a baseline. What do we want to say? And we are not trying to talk in our platforms, networks, that corruption is bad. Everyone knows that corruption is bad. Everyone knows. Ask even the corrupted people, is corruption, what corruption is bad. Yeah, of course it's bad. Even though criminals in the investigation says, I'm not a criminal because corruption, yes, is bad, but I'm not a corrupted person. But we need to talk, to create a baseline, to talk about integrity, importance of transparency, and positive things. Because when we are fighting, we can mobilize much more faster, but not for such a long time when we are speaking about positive things. So it's harder to attract attention of our target audiences when we're speaking about positive things. But when we are doing that, it will be, I would say, there will be a longer impact on that. As I mentioned, to make a network. Alone, Special Investigation Service will do nothing. It's impossible. We need someone to collaborate. We need someone who speaks towards, not us, a Special Investigation Service. We don't need that. We need people to speak towards Lithuania, society, transparency, and to be honest in that. So that's why creating networks in private sector, public sector, teachers, academia. So Vita, you are one of the best influencers in academia when we're talking about transparency. So thank you for that. So network is the place where Special Investigation Service is only a part of it, but not as a leader, because leaders should be separate persons, separate communities, and not the logo of our institution just to be here. No, we don't need that. And to ensure a safe place, because we need to share examples, not only our good practice, but also where we failed, where we were not able to make an impact, where we didn't, brought the message to the audience. And this is also good, because when, for example, teachers share the failures, other teachers have empathy. When Special Investigation Service will say, we failed, the teacher will say, bravo, because you don't know how to do that. Yes, we don't know. That's why teachers, for example, needs to be a leader. So safe space is not only for failures, but also for questions. Some of the people knows that, corruption is bad, but they do not know why. And they are kind of afraid to ask that question, because If the Special Investigation Service will see that we don't know, then they will think that we are bad, and they will do something for us. No, it's not that place here with Special Investigation Service. We always encouraging to ask questions, and when we get some wrong questions, especially the myths about corruption, transparency, Special Investigation Service, we are eager to share our message and our virtues, our position, and there is a discussion. And out of the free and safe discussion, we can reach the common consensus. And some, how to say, what we have. Platforms or tools we use for our teachers, our public servants, our private sector entities to build themselves a responsibility towards transparency. So first of all, it's the e-learning platform. So it's for general public and also for private and public sectors. It's available 24/7. So it's online, it's okay. Most relevant information, not only from theory, but also from practical examples. All of the participants can get a certification, so it's good for teachers, for public servants who needs to, I would say, to provide some evidence that they spend their time at work towards their functions. And what do we have? I think 3 years right now we have this platform. So more than 60,000 members from Lithuania joined. It's really a good number for us, and more than 90,000 certificates were issued. So we're still moving forward, creating new topics, new themes. If you have anything you want to know about anti-corruption environment in Lithuania, you can join. And if you miss some topics, you see that there is nothing which can be useful for you, just let us know, and then in the future we'll make that topic or theme together. Networks, Integrity Academy. We create a mentorship program for public sector at first, then the second step was with teachers. The third step right now is for private sector, where in each group, the people who knows or who experience how to create anti-corruption environment in schools and organizations, in private entities, they share experience how to do that with those who do not know how, but are not afraid to ask. And in this way, we are also trying to do snowballing effect. And cheers to that. Yeah, some people in Camo, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. Camo. We are working with our Lithuanian Rifleman Union. It's the volunteer organizations. It's like a homeland defense union. Right now they have more than 6,000 members of youth. Also, lot more thousands of how to say other members. And what we are doing with them, besides the common hikes or hikes for integrity, hikes for transparency, what we did this year, we launched a program because our Rifleman Union is responsible for civic defense subject in our schools for ninth grade students. So around 30,000 students per year are obliged to have this course. And in this way, we have one topic about integrity and transparency and national defense, because corruption and national defense are really connected together. And in this way, we made a tools. So we created a specialized board game for instructors who goes to schools. And in this way, this is not a special investigation service, but Rifleman Union representatives who speaks about integrity, transparency in the words and in the space where students understand. So in this way, what we did, teach the teachers method, and not because for special investigation service, it will be, once again, impossible to reach 30,000 students per year. It's impossible for us. But for the Rifleman Union, it's easy job. So for us, it's kind of easy and, how to say, sorry? Yeah, of course, to talk with the Rifleman Union. So in this way, when we're asking, is it worth it? All of that, platforms, networks. I remember when I began working at Special Investigation Service several years ago, more than 5 years ago, we are really busy to speak in lectures, to make lectures, to make lessons. But in that way, we reach only a small amount of our society, our target audiences we aimed to. And right now, what we can say with all the platform networks, with support of academia, once again, Vita, thank you for that. What we can say, definitely, it's worth it. Because in this way, we can make a sustainable, safe space for everyone who wants to move towards integrity. And Special Investigation Service is here not to make criminal investigations, but to help. And to help to build that baseline in which all of us can discuss and reach a common consensus. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for our colleague and I would say friend and collaborator on transparency banners. It is our great pleasure to say that not only our academy colleagues are working on the same issues, just because of some steps done by Special Investigation Service, inspired some scientific research, which was led by Rita, our colleague, now expanded to Europe, to Germany, to Spain and to UK, and Nora, as representative of Nottingham University, is a part of our team. And we inspired, three of us and our colleague Sigitas have inspired our colleagues in Germany and Spain to spread the word about youth anti-corruption potential. So we hope that it will help to make our young generation, as well as the whole society, more resilient to corruption. But at the same time, we are moving to the last, but I would say not last but not the least presentation. I would like to ask if Professor Daniela and Professor Daniel are here.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to hear you and to see you, Professor Daniela. Daniela Nell Sanders and Professor Daniel Mayer are our colleagues from South Africa, from the School of Public Management in the University of Johannesburg. And it's our great pleasure to have you. I hope that the timelines are the same, so it's not a problem, I guess, but I hope that you feel okay and everything is fine in your beautiful country. So, dear Professor Daniela, are you ready with your presentation? Would you like to share your slides?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. The time difference is not bad. It's 1 hour, so it's 10:30. So it's not a bad time. I am from the School of Public Management, Governance and Public Policy from the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. And I live in the city in Johannesburg. Yes, we will talk today about governance in South Africa. Obviously, good governance with a focus on openness and transparency. I will give an overview of the concept good governance. I think we're all familiar with it, but I'd just like to unpack it a bit, its origin and its relevance to Africa and South Africa. And then I will provide an overview of the current governance context in South Africa and the challenges. And my colleague, Professor Daniel Mayer, will then do an assessment of governance and corruption in South Africa, and if he will also do a comparison with Lithuania. And I see he just joined us. Prof. Mayer is here, but I don't know if you want to greet everybody, or can I continue, Prof. Mayer?
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. Prof. Daniel, you already started, but I think you're going to continue. But good morning to all the colleagues in Lithuania, which I know. I see them sit there in the front, so it's nice to see you. Next year, we will be there. I promised Vita, we're coming to Lithuania. We're coming to take over Lithuania in 1 year's time.
Okay. All right. So, you'll see my slide here. I have the PM concentration for the air quality
today in Johannesburg. So, like I mentioned, I lived in Johannesburg, and for at least 50% of the time, the air in Johannesburg is unsafe. This is due to a mixture of dust blown into the city, exhaust fumes, nearly 5 million vehicles, fires from homes, pollution from small industries and power stations. So yesterday, when I was looking at the air quality index for Johannesburg, I thought of Pras Hans' quote, comparing good governance to air. And the quote is, "Good governance should be like air. Its existence need not be discussed, but its absence would make a huge difference." So I feel this is very relevant in a South African context. We as South Africans are feeling the brunt of a lack of good governance in the country. So the debate on good governance started in reaction to the inefficient and corrupt administrative structures in developing countries, which were applying or eligible for financial loans. And because of the weak government structures in these countries, structural adjustment programs of the World Bank and the IMF had failed. So the World Bank wrote a report on 1989 to reflect on why structural adjustment programs had failed to create economic growth. And the authors considered the economic crisis in Africa as a crisis of governance, essentially. And this became apparent in the following practices: personalized politics and patronage, officials serving their own interests without being held accountable, survival based on personal networks rather than holding the state accountable, unlawful leadership, overbearing control over associations and information. So firstly, before we conceptualize good governance, let's just consider what is implied by governance. And I think the previous speaker was Sean. I like his off-the-cuff definition of governance. I think I have similar views. But okay, so firstly, governance, simply put, means the process of decision-making and processes by which decisions are implemented, and also the network of actors which are involved in those processes. If you look at the literature, you'll see there is a lack of uniformity of what the definition of good governance is. There seems to be so many definitions of good governance as there are users of the concept. I think much of the confusion about the concept stems from its usage on different levels. Firstly, used by donors for practical purposes, by academics as analytical concepts, and also by others as a normative ideal. So with normative concepts, we have to operationalize them. And so for me, essentially good governance focus on the ingredients of public management. So in other words, irrespective of quality of policy set by governance, good governance is required to ensure those policies have their desired effect. So it helps to ensure governments actually deliver on what they said they would deliver. Bad governance then would mean that it's one of the foundational reasons why governments cannot adequately respond to social issues or societal issues. So the Development Assistance Committee of the OECD identified 8 principles for good governance. They are accountability, transparency, responsiveness, equitable and inclusive, and efficient and effective use of resources, following the rule of law, participation, and consensus-oriented decision-making. So essentially, a transparent government ensures that information is freely available to citizens, which fosters trust and engagement. And effective mechanisms for holding public officials are accountable for essentially preventing abuse of power and corruption. So engaging citizens in decision-making enhances legitimacy of government actions and policies. And also the fair application of these laws protects citizens and promotes justice. So good governance should treat all citizens fairly, addressing historical injustice and promoting social equity. And governments should manage resources in an efficient and effective manner. Conceptually, 4 of these key principles of governance indicated on this slide tend to be mutually supportive and reinforcing. So firstly, accountability is often related to participation and is also ultimate safeguard of predictability and transparency. And in the absence of accountability, there are no predictable decisions. And also it places the power and interests of certain agencies above citizens. Similarly, transparency and information openness cannot be assured without legal frameworks that balance the right to disclose against the right of confidentiality, and without those institutions that accept accountability. And transparency is required because without information about how similarly placed individuals have been treated, it may be difficult to ensure adherence to the rule of equality before the law. So finally, a transparent system facilitates governmental accountability, participation, and predictability of outcomes. Now, the South African context, in 1994, after the abolishment of the apartheid system, a new constitution was adopted, and this document enshrines the fundamental human rights and establishes a framework for governance that emphasize accountability, the rule of law, and equality. However, systematic corruption, lack of service delivery, distrust in public institutions has prevented governance in the country. Now, the Constitution stipulates the following principles, and I'll just summarize it. And it's a high standard of professional ethics, effective and efficient use of resources. Public administration needs to be development-oriented. Services has to be equitable. Public participation, accountability, transparency, good human resource management and professionalism, and then public administration has to be broadly representative. So from these constitutional stipulations, it's clear that the public management principles of good governance in South Africa aim to ensure acceptable standards of efficiency and effectiveness in the daily lives of public managers in serving the people. The basic principle of governance is optimum service delivery at optimum cost in pursuit of quality of life for citizens. However, this is what the Constitution stipulates on paper. However, where's South Africa in this picture? Currently, South Africa is experiencing weak structural growth, electricity supply shortages, which has had severe economic impacts. 34% of the population is unemployed. South Africa has the highest and the most persistent inequality rates in the world. Corruption scandals have severely undermined public trust in government. Service delivery protests have been a commonplace, reflecting citizens' frustrations with inadequate public services. So we need more inclusive and sustainable outcomes in South Africa. South Africa, amidst economic inequality, system-wide corruption, weakened state capacity, and a failure to deliver basic services, are failing on good governance. So Prof. Meyer will now give an analysis of governance in South Africa and comparing it to Lithuania. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, I'm going to look at South Africa versus Lithuania. I wasn't planning to do a comparison, but I've decided last night to actually do it. I'm going to look at good governance, which Prof. Daniel explained so well, and it's many factors that is included in good governance. But I've also included country risk analysis and to see how the two are interrelated with each other. So let's see the results of all of that. My research question in terms of this analysis, and anybody that's interested in finalizing this research article, because this is just a conceptual guideline for it, and it's just in progress at the moment. The research question: what's the relationship between what's the relationship and the impact of good governance, quality of regulations or policy, and corruption and country risk? And I will explain to you exactly what is this country risk variable that I've included here. So, can good governance lead to improved regulations and less corruption, and altogether lead to lower country risks for people to invest, for the economy to grow? So all of these things are interrelated. The theoretical foundation is based on two theories: the principal-agent theory, and this theory examines the relationship between the stakeholders, the citizens, you and me, and the agents, which is government officials or government. And it highlights the issues of transparency and accountability to align agents' actions with stakeholders' interests. So effective governance structures mitigate stakeholder-agent problems through checks and balances, ensuring that public officials act in the public interest. So that is really what good governance is all about. It's all about public officials being servants of the public and making sure of good service delivery. And the second one, institutional theory, focus on the role of institutions. Good quality government institutions leads to good governance. It also leads to more investment in the economy to grow. So that is my theoretical foundation of this research. The methodology, it's quantitative. Vita will know that I work a lot with indexes and development of new indexes, but also with secondary data sets like the World Bank. I could have used a number of data sets, but I've decided the most reliable data sets at this point of time is the World Bank Governance Index, which has got about 7 sub-indexes that you can use with a nice long time series delay. That's from 1996. And then also the PRS international country risk data. That is for every country in the world on a monthly basis. And that started in 1980s. So it's really good, reliable data sets. And my time series runs from 1996 to 2023. And it is a regression with long and short run predictions and this relationship between all of the variables. And my variables include good governance, which is from the effective government variable from the World Bank governance indicators. Also quality of regulations, quality of policy, which is very important. Some countries have got very good policy, but they cannot implement. But the quality of the regulations we will also have a look at. And then corruption control, how well is the government preventing corruption to happen? And then the last one is a composite country risk index from PRS International. It's my dependent variable, but I've used all of the variables as independent and independent, but I just use it in some cases in the regression. The composite country risk index is basically 27 sub-indexes that this company compiles. It is about political issues, governance issues, financial issues, economic issues, and it's a combined variable, which could also be split into the 27 if you want to use individual sub-indexes. I've done some descriptive regression and causality estimations comparing South Africa with Lithuania. First one is the South African situation. So on the left top is the effective governance or good governance variable. You can see it's a downward trend. This is the World Bank governance indicators. You know, they use from minus 2.5 to plus 2.5, but it doesn't make really sense if you look at it like that. What is 1.5 out of 2.5? It doesn't make sense. So I've just converted this to percentages. So it's 45% up to from 0 to 100% for South Africa. We started in 1996 at 70% as a good governance indicator. It went down all the way to 2023 up to below 50%. So we're below average at the moment for good governance. Looking not good. It's continuing to this downward trend. The top right-hand side, we've got the quality of the regulations or policy. We started well in 1996 with the new government, but all the way down from about 2003. It hasn't looked back. We've been going downwards. This trend is not good. We are unable to, it seems unable to turn the ship around in terms of policy implementation and good policy formulation. Our bottom left is the corruption, how to control corruption. Still, the president currently is talking about stopping corruption, all of this, but it's still a runaway train going downhill, not looking good at a percentage below 45% very bad in terms of corruption. And then the last one, the Composite Risk Index, the PRS one, which is a monthly index. This is also from 1996 up to 2023. There's some recoveries and so on throughout the years, but mostly a downward trend again. We have got not a bad percentage, just below 70% if you compare it with the other indexes, but this is a comprehensive one where other factors comes in, like I said, the financial management, our banking system, the economic side of it. It is a little bit better, but still on a downward trend. I'm going to go to Lithuania now. This is effective governance, again, the top left one. You started at about 60%. There was a downward trend up to the year 2000. And then from there, it went upwards up to about 2015. But your recent years, in the 2020 COVID years, there's been stagnation in terms of governance, a little bit downward trend there. And I think this is where I would like to have a partner in Lithuania to finalize this article to explain this little bit of stagnation and downward trend that's happening there. Quality of regulations, the same with effective governance. We went down in the beginning, but overall trend is upwards in terms of quality of regulation and implementation of policy. It is quite good. It ended up at about 76%, which is fantastic for any country to see this upward trend. And then corruption control, from the beginning, 1996 went down up to about 2008-9. But from 2010, there's an upward trend up to the COVID years. And now we've seen in the last year or two, there's a little bit of an issue there. And I would like to also analyze that in more detail after this. And then the composite index, it is upward trend, downwards from 2005 to 10, and then a recovery. I don't know what happened here in Lithuania in terms of possibly the economy, in terms of the financial crisis. It could have been the reason there, but it recovered. And now, since 2015, there has been a downward trend below the 70% for this composite index. These trends will be analyzed in the final article, so this is just the trends. But you can see this is the top four is South Africa, the bottom four is Lithuania. The one country is downward trend, the other one is mostly upward trending with some hiccups, but there is a little bit of an issue happening. This is South Africa long run analysis in terms of a regression. And as I said, in terms of this one, I used the composite risk index as my dependent variable with the other three predicting what's been happening with the overall risk of the country. And effective governance has got a very positive impact of improvement in the composite risk index. So it's really important if we look at it. All of them has got a p-value of a significant p-value of 5%. So they're all significant predictors and positive predictors of improvement in the overall risk in a country. So to invest, you will see. So the one with the highest of coefficient is effective governance, nearly one to one. So 1% increase in the good governance will lead to nearly 0.9% improvement in the risk index. So it's very important that we improve our governance, also our regulations and implementation of policy, as well as corruption control. Very high coefficients supporting improvement in the composite index. When we look at Lithuania, a little bit of different result here. The same equation with composite risk index as the dependent variable, but not all of the variables were significant predictors. For example, the quality of regulations were not significant here, with high p-values just at the 10% significant. So it's a little bit different to the South African situation, but still at 10% predicting improvement of the composite risk. With the highest, most important one is the good governance, the effective governance variable at 0.45. But corruption control, quite low coefficient, so there's not a big impact on it. I think it's maybe the levels of the issues that's much lower problematic as compared to South Africa, where there's a little bit of improvement there, will improve a lot on the overall outcome. This is causality index. So if you have a change in the one variable, it causes a shock in another one to change. So this is the direction of the impact. So effective governance does impact very significantly on the level of your policy and the implementation of policy. It is a significant level there. So if it's got a p-value of below 0.05, it does have a positive impact. So effective governance really impact the level of the quality of your regulations. There's a bi-directional impact between corruption control and effective governance, which is very important, and it's very true in South Africa. If you have good governance, you will have less corruption, definitely like that, but it's bi-directional. And this one is also good governance does impact positively on your composite risk index, as we've shown in the regression. This is taking all of the variables, dependent and independent. So you can look at both sides. What's the direction of the impacts? So there's a lot of impacts here, as well as if there's more corruption control, we'll have improved regulations and more quality policy implementation. And then the last one, improved regulation quality will have also a positive impact on your composite risk index. These are more on the short run. I didn't calculate the regression on the short run, but this causality, pairwise causality index, also short run. It tells you if you can just have better quality regulations and policy implementation, it will have a very positive impact on your risk, overall country risk index, as well as the corruption will also have a very positive impact in your country risk. Looking at Lithuania, nearly completed, there's also a bidirectional relationship between corruption control does impact positively on your regulations, your quality of your regulations, but the regulations will also on that side impact on your corruption control levels. So mostly similar results that was in South Africa in this case. No significant relationship between quality of your regulations and composite index. I think it's because of more higher level quality of your policies and the implementation thereof if compared to South Africa. So if there's a little bit of a change there, it doesn't have a big impact. South Africa, we've got poor quality implementation of policy. A little bit of improvement will have a big impact on your composite risk index for investors to look at the country more favorably over the long run. Some conclusions, I'm not going to go through everything, but we need, and this is specifically for South Africa, corruption. We need to have much stronger anti-corruption laws and the enforcement of it. There's no enforcement of it. You can be corrupt, but you're not going to go to jail. Open and accountable government. We need to be more accountable in terms of decision making, the procurement, and the financial management. It's not open and accountable enough. Strong ethical leadership is very important. And then the whistleblower protection. You can be a whistleblower, but you will come second. So you will be taken out. There's many examples in South Africa where there's retaliation against whistleblowers with no protection for them. And I know you must have heard about fast government from the World Economic Forum, streamlining of processes, adoption of e-governance, and more face-to-face interaction to reduce the need for face-to-face interactions to speed up processes. In the last slide, more about good governance and economic development, because that is also my focus for research. Policy certainty, quality of policy certainty drives economic growth. Good governance will drive economic growth and investment through good services delivery and infrastructure. Danielle talked about electricity load shedding. It's a massive problem for development. Infrastructure development, capacity, skills development is important for a developing country like South Africa. public-private partnerships. And I think we've got a new government, and they are more positive towards private sector investment and partnerships. So that is a positive impact at the moment for the new government. And then environmental sustainability. Nobody will invest or will be interested in a dirty environment, and we need to keep our environments clean in terms of all of the sustainable development goals, which could also be included in this analysis. There's data for everything, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. Again, anybody who wants to finalize this article with me, including Vita and Prof. Daniel, you are much welcome to contact me. There is my email address. I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you both for Professor Daniel and Professor Daniela. It is great to hear you here. So I will try to make a little bit, zooming you for everybody, because it's important for us to have you as speakers of this plenary session for the screen for the people who are in the room. And now we are moving to the questions and answer session. I know that we are a little bit late of the schedule. I know that you are all exhausted, but at the same time, I guess this is the most important part, to be able to discuss and to have opportunity to ask questions. As Sean said, if somebody says like a leader, I don't know, it leads us to possibility to find solutions together. So I would like to remind to everybody in the room, you have the right to ask. So if you have any question, please just raise your hand, because my colleague Jurgita will help with the microphone. And we have another microphone on the table, so our colleagues are ready for answering the questions. I will ask Nora to switch on the second microphone, and we have Professor Daniela and Professor Daniel online as well for the answers. If we have some online questions, please raise your hand as well, because it will help us to moderate the session. Do we have the hot burning questions right now, right here? Maybe somebody already has some. Still no. So let me start with the first question, because despite of the fact that we all tackle different approaches, for example, transparency, openness, resilience, and I would say even trust, there was an idea today that we should tolerate failures, because it's a possibility to learn some lessons. But at the same time, I would like to ask, what would society think about us like governance representatives, like government, to make failures in the case of terrorism, in the case of military issues and security, in the case of highly corrupted cases, and such cases like recently in Lithuania, when one mayor was taken off of the position just because of corruptive activity and so on. So do we really have possibility to tolerate failures and to learn lessons from that? And I guess it's a question for all of our key speakers today. So I don't know who would like to start with the answer.
So thank you, Vita. That's a tricky question. I should take a leaf out of Sean's book and just say I don't know the answer. But no. So the question is, do we tolerate failures? I don't think it's about tolerating failure. I think that it's about recognizing failure can happen, and then where possible, trying to learn lessons and put processes in place that can prevent those failures from happening again in the future. Sean made a really important point about saying, I don't know. I'm just thinking back to the case study that I provided, which was looking at the Manchester Arena attack. There's a really important moment in the attack, in the response to the attack, where the police silver level commander, who's supposed to be knowledgeable about all of the operational guidance, is asked about Operation Plato, which is the police's response to a marauding firearms attack. He hasn't been trained in it, and he doesn't know what Operation Plato is. But rather than just say, I don't know what Operation Plato is. He pretends that he knows what it is. That hampers the response. I think those kind of failures can't be tolerated, but you can learn from those you can learn lessons from those situations, and you can implement training and exercising and practices that can, if not prevent it from happening again in the future, can then at least mitigate the impact or lessen the likelihood of something like that happening again. That would be my take on it.
As from my side, about that failures, recently I had a discussion with students in Vilnius, and one of them asked kind of really interesting question. He said, okay, so we are communicating that the level of corruption is that and that. We have corruption cases. We have, I know we speak about integrity and corruption risk analysis. You speak about corruption. If you would not speak about that, maybe then the people will think that there is no corruption, or they will be happier. And my answer as of today, if we tolerate failures or tolerating failures, is that, okay, so we have corruption, but what we do about that? Because as a problem, if you will put that under the carpet at some point and at some moment will blow off. And then we will see all the problems at once without any plans, without any readiness for that. So we have a problem, what we do about that, and how we communicate for our stakeholders, for our society, what we are doing, how we are doing, why we are doing that. Because of course they will say, you mentioned the mayor. Have you seen comments after the judge's decision? A lot of comments said, "Oh, that was a good mayor. It's a shame." The law enforcement shouldn't do something about that. They should leave it as it was, without any criminal investigation and so on. But what we do after the failures, if we recognize it, how we act towards that. So for my side is never tolerate a failure, just to make a communication plan and also the action plan how to overcome it. And as Sean said, communicate is the best way to introduce what we are doing towards society and to keep our trust from them at high points.
So to piggyback on both of those points, I also zoomed in on the verb tolerate. So we don't tolerate failure per se. We leave a space and place for failure, good faith failure to happen. In the example of a corrupt city official, my assumption is it wasn't like, well, I'm going about mayoring and I slipped and I fell and now I'm into the mob for 40,000 euro. Like there were choices made that were known to be the wrong choices. And then in the example of the Manchester Arena attack, it depends on how much public trust you have when the opportunity to excel presents itself. So one of the best parts, or one of the, I guess I would say the only part of the aftermath of that horrific attack was how it was owned. It was, yes, we made a mistake. Yes, we have independent people coming in. Now, those independent people might have been inflicted upon the emergency services by a higher echelon to say, what happened? How did this come this way? I'm not nearly as read into it as you are. But the very exercise of saying we made mistakes, here's how it happened, and here's how we're not going to do it again, in my opinion at least, that builds public trust. And so it's important to, in summary, sorry, I was kind of wandering. In summary, I agree, tolerate is not where we're at. It's more of a provide space for. And then the importance of gaining and maintaining the public trust is going to determine the way by which we grow and change collectively.
Thank you so much. And we have our two key speakers online as well. So can I ask Professor Daniel and Professor Daniela, what do you think about possibility to do mistakes and to learn the lessons?
Yeah. So I think I agree with the previous speaker. So there's a mistake, the failure, and then there's corruption. And in South Africa's context, whether it's a mistake, failure, or corruption, there's a lack of consequence management. The law is not enforced. There's awareness of corruption, and it's exposed. It's the courts follow through in investigating it, but there's no consequence for it. And the same with failure in South Africa. Another problem is we have a lack of risk management in our local authorities, and risk management is just a compliance exercise. Hence, there's not enough foresight in making decisions.
Thanks, Vita. I would say that we are missing the source of the problem, and the World Economic Forum is in their analysis says that appoint the best of the best at government. In many cases, we haven't got the best people appointed for the job in government, national, provincial, or local government. In South Africa, we get cadre deployment, which people are appointed because they're friends and family of ministers and key officials. They're not suitable for the position. So they take decisions based on a lack of knowledge. They cannot, let's say, react quickly and be adaptable to changing environments, and that is causing the wrong decision to be taken and poor governance and poor service delivery. So we need to have the best of the best appointed in government. Even politicians, they should be at a specific level. Otherwise, you will always have mistakes, and it's difficult to rectify a mistake after it's happened. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any burning question? One more from the audience. I guess everybody is dreaming about the lunch break because it was so involving that our brain was focused like 2 hours just deeply in the topic, and everybody's tired a little bit. So let me thank you for all of presenters. Let me thank you for all the participants who are the strongest ones staying till the end of this plenary session. It is our great pleasure to thank to Professor Christopher Baker-Beall, Nora Leach, Sean Bittig, Benas Aldakauskas, Professors Daniel and Daniela from Johannesburg University for their insights and the willingness to share with us. At the same time, I would like to come back to the Ministry of Interior, where I had the honor to work with my colleagues, and they have made a wonderful job 2 days ago. They have organized an amazing European level conference on resilience. And to see the truth, I can see a lot of links between our conference and they organized wonderful conference, because we had the same keywords: trust, leadership, involvement of all organizations working together towards crisis management. So this teaches us that here in this international conference organized in Šiauliai Academy, we just contribute to the same, I would say, flagship of working together, government, citizens, as well as business, as well as NGOs, towards the main goal. That means good governance and at the same time resilience for any type of crisis and bad things. So at the very end, unfortunately, we don't have Professor Daniel and Professor Daniela here. We would like to thank you, at least in the words, and we are really waiting you next year joining us in Lithuania. And now I would like to ask our director Renata to join us, because we would like to thank to all of our presenters who are here in the room, because we really appreciate your contribution and really appreciate you being here. So thank you for all of you.